Russia announced a maritime blockade of Ukraine. It's not only cargo with Ukrainian grain, it can be ships under any flag, and in fact, they don't allow any at all. Sea communication in the basin of the Black Sea of Ukraine. Ukrainian and other vessels cannot enter the ports of Odessa and Mykolaiv. The explosion of the Kerch Bridge became the prelude, and the situation with the grain deal worsened. How will Turkey answer this critical moment and the West as a whole? Ukrainian grain is needed by third world countries that have food problems. By the way, a third of this grain goes to China, and a considerable part goes to countries in Africa and Asia. Turkey has not announced the possibility of escorting ships. Russia may have problems in the Black Sea basin with the ports built there. With freight forwarding of export production. I mean gas and oil. Ukraine has leverage precisely in the energy sector. We know cooperation between Turkey and Moscow is established. What? Is it possible to take action on the part of Turkey to influence Moscow? Well, judging by everything, Turkey has put an end to the previous so-called grain deal. And as far as I know, Turkey and other members, so those who have access to the Black Sea are Bulgaria and Romania. They have already announced that they will not escort their warships to ships headed to Ukrainian ports and vice versa. The world is not so intensely interested in this seed. We see that grains are more than enough. When we talk about how this grain from Ukraine fed countries with acute hunger, it is like that. Only 2 6/10 of the world's grain production of Ukraine went somewhere in Bangladesh, and even in some countries that are experiencing food shortages. The main buyers of this grain were first China, and if the European Union considered it, the European Union was in the first place. That is, in principle, developed countries that do not experience hunger. By the way, Russia can't sell the previous year's harvest, they haven't sold 21 million tons of grain yet. So there are no shortages, the collapse of this deal will not lead to famine or anything else, and that's why some European countries have said that they are not going to allow Ukraine to use their territory and their ports for. Therefore, the situation here is not as it is portrayed in the media now. I would have drawn attention to a completely different circumstance after Russia announced that it would consider any ships going to Ukrainian ports to be military targets. Ukraine declared ships that would go to Russian ports to be legitimate military targets, because they would be considered to be carriers transporting military products, and also announced to the international navigation services that it had closed the considerable water area from Kerch to Ismail, declaring it a high danger zone because there could be some military actions there. This means a massive overspend for Russia, because you imagine what kind of insurance will be here for all ships that will go on the Black Sea to Russian or Ukrainian ports. It can happen. This insurance will make exporting Russian oil unprofitable because tanker after tanker goes there. Novorossiysk flows oil and oil products from Tuapse. How much will these losses be noticeable? Will the flow end? 80% of all Kazakh oil that goes to export goes through Novorossiysk. There is a terminal near the Caspian Pipeline Consortium in Tuapse, which ships light crude oil. When you look somewhere in the Bosphorus, you sit in a cafe and look at the Bosphorus, and then the tankers go empty in one direction and full in the other. All the owners of these tankers will suddenly understand that in such a situation, the insurance will be huge, and it's just risky. You can lose the tanker. At all. As always, in Russia, they do not calculate the consequences. What is the second step? They talk in Russia about two-way combinations, but there are no two-way combinations in the Kremlin. There is some nervous reaction to an event, which usually turns out to be wrong. In this case, we saw all of this, and they created a colossal nuisance from the point of view of oil exports and, in general, the movement of ships in the Black Sea.